All right, welcome everybody to today's CDT Essentials 2026 update webinar. We are all really excited that you could join us today and start planning your adventure on the CDT, whether it's this year or next or way down the road. My name is Alex Durr. I'm our communications manager here, and I'll be sort of your moderator and question master today. And it's great to be with you all. But we're also joined by a great group of CDT staff who's going to be here to share their wisdom and expertise with you all tonight or today. So today's webinar does build on our previous updates from 2024 and 2025. So if you haven't already watched those two videos, I definitely recommend bookmarking those or watching those later. They're both on our YouTube channel, and they have a lot of the foundational information that'll be helpful for planning your trip along the divide. So during the webinar, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat that we have. You can also ask questions throughout the session and drop them in the Q&A feature. We're going to start today with some updates and short presentations from some of our staff. But then we'll spend a good chunk of the session on Q&A specifically, answering the questions you have. So you can drop those in the Q&A sort of feature here in Zoom at any time, or you can save them for the end. And if we can answer them in the moment, we will answer those for you right there in the chat. Otherwise, we'll save those for the group and answer them live at the end of the session. We are recording the session today, so don't worry about capturing every single detail or trying to get really detailed notes, as we will be sharing these or a link to the recording, I should say, afterwards on YouTube, so you can watch this and get anything that you missed. So and then lastly here, before we dive in, CDTC staff, board, the whole community really, we ask all trail visitors to join us in acknowledging that these lands on which the CDT traverses across all 3,100 miles are the homelands of indigenous and native people and tribal nations. And these are traditional stewards of these lands who've called the place home for millennia, time immemorial, and still call them home today. So many were persecuted or killed through genocide and were removed from these homelands. And so in all of our work and on the trail, we honor these people, past, present, and future, who continue to live, hold sacred, and steward all of the landscapes across the Continental Divide National Scenic Trail. So thank you all for joining us in that today. And with that, we will dive into some staff updates and get started with Claire Cutler, our trail policy specialist. So take it away, Claire.
Hi everyone, my name is Claire. I'm the trail policy specialist here at CDTC. I'm based in Denver, Colorado. And I'm going to talk today about a topic that I think a lot of you are probably familiar with, and I know there's a lot of uncertainty around. So I just want to share some background and help folks understand what's going on in the southernmost portion of the CDT. So in April of 2025, last year, the Department of the Interior, the BLM specifically, the Bureau of Land Management, transferred control of over 100,000 acres of land along the U.S.-Mexico border in New Mexico to the U.S. Army for control for 3 years for the purported purpose of establishing control of the U.S. southern border. This area is now known as the New Mexico National Defense Area. This includes the southernmost 1.1 miles of the CDT and the trail's southern terminus monument. I want to note here that CDTC does not decide the route of the CDT, and as such, we can't simply move the CDT out of the defense area. So the route of the CDT was determined in the National Trail System Act in 1978, and now a portion of the CDT, which is congressionally designated, runs through an Army installation. So what do you need to know about this? Hikers wishing to enter the National Defense Area, the NDA, must apply for and receive permission from the U.S. Army at Fort Huachuca. That QR code on the screen will take you to the page that has information on how to do that. Detailed information about the permitting process can be found on Fort Huachuca's website, and we'd encourage you to direct your questions and your curiosity about the permitting process to Fort Huachuca, as they are the ones that run this. CDTC has no hand in the clearance or permitting process for entering the NDA. It's a military installation. Completion certificates will not be affected by whether or not you decide to enter the NDA or visit the southern terminus itself. The CDT shuttle drop-off and pickup has been moved to the Mangus tank, which is at mile 2.2 of the CDT. Danny is going to discuss what this means for the shuttle in more detail in a few minutes. I also want to make a note on construction of a border wall near the southern terminus of the CDT. So preparations have begun to construct a wall along the US border in the boot heel of New Mexico, directly adjacent to the southern terminus of the CDT. The road to access the terminus has been graded, and a contract has been issued for construction of the wall. We know that there may also be potential changes to the location or the status of the southern terminus monument, the obelisk, that folks often see in photos at the southern terminus of the CDT. Congressional authority allows the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, to waive policies that could slow the construction of a border wall. So in the Federal Register notice that announced the construction of the border wall, Secretary Noem waived the National Trails System Act, which governs the scenic quality of the CDT, alongside many other environmental policies, which means there was no opportunity for public input on construction of the border wall, or on establishment of the NDA for that matter. CDTC is working with elected officials to raise awareness and understanding of what's happening. We have extensive resources on our website that kind of detail our approach to this and what we've been working on. Of logistical importance related to border wall construction is that we have heard that temporary lodging in Hidalgo County and in Lordsburg is largely secured for contractors who are working on building the wall. We'd really encourage you to investigate the ability of hotels and other lodging well in advance of when you'll need it. Just some final thoughts that I want to share on this topic. I know that there's a lot of talk around it. This decision was made by the Department of Defense and the Department of the Interior. CDTC had no hand in the establishment of the National Defense Area, and we were not consulted, and it was not open to public comment. CDTC is not encouraging or discouraging hikers from entering the National Defense Area. That's a personal decision, and we totally understand that that could be impacted by a number of factors. So rather than encouraging or discouraging you to do that, we would encourage you to comply with the U.S. Army requirement if you choose to enter. Entering a national defense area without permission is punishable by law. Finally, I just want to share that this decision was made under direction from executive orders and secretarial orders issued by members of the current administration. As our policy and advocacy specialist, if you have thoughts on it, I'd really encourage you to share those with your elected officials. The CDT Action Center has links and contact information for every elected official from a Continental Divide Trail state. And if you are not from a CDT state, that's public information. It's really easy to contact your elected officials. So I would encourage you to do so if you have thoughts on this. I'm going to pass it along to other members of our staff now, but please feel free to put your questions about this in the chat or the Q&A area.
Okay, thanks, Claire. Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Carter. I'm the Trail and Lands Conservation Program Manager here at CDTC, and I'm based down in southern New Mexico. And I'm going to be talking about some water and some working lands issues along the CDT. So I'm sure as you're familiar, water is a bit of a concern on any backpacking trip, but especially in parts of the CDT. And water scarcity can really be a challenge in a lot of the CDTs. You can see on the slide here, we've done a water gap analysis, and as one would imagine, if you're familiar with the CDT at this point, New Mexico and southern Wyoming are well known for being a little on the dry side. And so with that, you have to plan accordingly. So, our water gaps are anywhere between 10 miles from sources. And you should be prepared to, carry, have a high water capacity to make, long stretches, sometimes up to a day or more worth of water in those dry stretches as well. And along the CDT, you'll come across many different types of water sources, both natural and developed water sources. Some of your natural ones, as you can imagine, like springs, rivers, creeks, etc. And then, especially in these drier areas, usually relying on more developed water sources like livestock waters, which are windmills, wells, drinkers, water caches, or trail angel caches as well. Something really important to note with these livestock waters is that these also serve grazing operations and working lands and are usually fed by private wells and with private investment, but they might be located on public lands. And so many of the ranchers and permittees are partners on the CDT and are very hospitable and welcoming, but they just ask that their water infrastructure isn't tampered with or their livestock isn't disturbed. So if you're using these livestock waters, just be mindful. They should be used as a backup. Try to use the caches when you can. Um, and that all water should still be filtered, even from these developed sources. And then the livestock water shouldn't be used if there are like livestock nearby, um, or if it's located on private land. We don't want to have trespass issues and make sure that we respect private property. Um, and again, natural sources can be very ephemeral, especially during the drought conditions that we currently are experiencing. So please be sure to watch the water report and far out or other sources, and please add to that as you go along your hike, especially in these dry stretches, or call ranger stations or local partners for the latest information on the water sources. And if in doubt, carry more. Um, and again, water caches may be left by triangles, and so just be sure that those containers are secured after you're using them so they don't blow away and turn into a litter issue. And if you are a trail angel or you know trail angel, please remove these containers in a timely manner so we just don't end up with these um, empty jugs scattered across the landscape. And just some best practices along at water sources, the common leave no trace, such as don't camp, wash, or dispose of waste within 200 feet of natural sources, but then also ask that you don't camp within 900 feet of developed water sources, such as these livestock waters. And that's just so it gives plenty of room for the livestock or for the wildlife to feel comfortable to come in there and drink and do what they need to do as well. And if you're using these developed sources, please do not tamper with the water plumbing or the other infrastructure. And if there's a valve, please be sure to turn that off um, if you have to turn it on to use it, unless you're told otherwise. And my final slide is, in a similar to the livestock waters, is addressing working lands. So much of the CDT are also working lands as well, where have active livestock operations with livestock and including guardian animals. So the guardian dogs are becoming more and more common as we share this space with wildlife, especially in northern Colorado and Idaho and Montana. Guardian dogs are a really effective management solution for having livestock out on these public lands and in these wild places. And so just some best practices here is, always give animals space and do not approach or harass either the dogs or the livestock. Neither are pets and should be treated as such. They're out there doing a job. Um, and don't approach the livestock tanks again if animals are present. And if you see livestock near the trail, just stop and let them see you. Give them plenty of space. And this is like feedback that we've gotten from ranchers along the trail. Not all livestock are used to seeing people, especially people with backpacks and flashy silver umbrellas. So they just ask that you please put your umbrella away and maybe approach more cautiously and slowly so they can get used to you and they won't be spooked. Sometimes spooking the livestock can cause stress and can be really harmful, especially to the young animals. Um, and please don't harass them if you see them out there. Um, and again, working and guardian dogs are pretty common among livestock. So if you're hiking with a dog, please keep your pets leashed. That's usually the biggest cause of any sort of interaction is a threat from a pet when these dogs are around. Stay calm and speak friendly to dogs if you are approached, um, but they shouldn't be approached as a pet. They're out there doing a job to defend the livestock, and they're really important working tools on these lands that are shared with predators. Um, and yeah, and also just please, when you're going through these lands, there could be operations across the trail or near the trail. So just try not to impede those operations. Stay on the trail and close the gates, and don't tamper with fences or don't cut fences. That'll really help not impede on those operations. We've worked extensively over the last few years with the different land managers, especially the BLM down in the southern part of the district, to install new gates and pass-throughs at all the crossings. So there should be dedicated trail crossings, so you don't have to worry about whether or not you close the gate. Since it's a trail gate, you always close the gate when you pass through. And I will pass it on to Danny.
Thanks, Dan, and hello, everyone. My name is Danny Knoll. I'm the Trail Information Manager, and I want to emphasize what Alex said at the beginning. Make sure that you watch the 2024 and 25 updates as well. We're just really updating the information that's new this year. And so I want to just cover a few changes for the CDT that you may experience this year as well. So the first thing is registration. Registration is something that we launched in 2024. It's completely voluntary, but it helps us get good data to be able to monitor trends and see when and where people are starting, see where bubbles are. So I encourage everyone that is going to be on the CDT for one night or more to please register, and you can do so using that QR code here on the screen or go to our website. Within that registration, you will also have the opportunity to sign up for trail alerts. Trail alerts will be sent to you via email or SMS if the trail closes or there's some kind of hazard on the trail that we want you to know about. So that's really the best way to learn about these closures. So that's been really useful for people. You also will have the opportunity to receive a free hang tag at one of the locations that are here on the screen. You must pick those up in person. And this year, the hang tag color for 2026 is purple. So purple is this year's color. And like I said, those should be available at those locations on trail. Another new thing that we're doing this year is a collaboration with Leave No Trace. Our goal is to have as many CDT hikers certified or trained in Leave No Trace as possible. And this year we're aiming for 1 in 3, so 33%. So when you register, we ask if you can upload your Leave No Trace certification. And then you can fill out an additional form, and we will send you some free gear from our generous donors. So if you are certified and you let us know when you register and you opt to, we'll send you a free Canuck through bottle and a Kula cloth. You just have to pay for the shipping. If you don't want to pay for the shipping, but you still want to be entered, there is also a raffle for a grand prize winner. So a little incentive for you all to get Leave No Trace certified if you're not already. And we've seen a lot of really good feedback. I think we already have 15% of 26 registered hikers certified. So thank you for that. All right, next changes. If you watch the 25 update, you'll know we had the park rangers from Glacier on, and there was a big construction project going on. Now they're staggering the construction, and we're going to see a big project done at Two Medicine. So on the screen here, hopefully you can see my cursor, is a map of the Two Medicine campground and where the CDT goes through Two Medicine. So the biggest change is that massive campground. There's like 100 site car camping campground will be closed this season. I don't think that's going to impact CDT hikers that much. Spoke to the park last week. They're in the process of trying to get a makeshift backcountry site, so you can still add that to your itineraries on your permits. So you may still be able to stay there. I don't want to promise anything. We'll certainly let you know when we hear about that. But if that is not able to happen, there are a couple sites just north here on the CDT that are very close backcountry sites. And then East Glacier is just 13 miles into East Glacier with plenty of lodging and camping opportunities. The good news is the permit office is going to remain open. So the permit office is right about here where my cursor is. That's going to remain open. So if you need to get backcountry permits, you can still go to Two Medicine to get them. This is probably the most used location for CDT hikers to get their permits is in Two Med because you can walk there as a northbounder. And if you're a southbounder, it's the closest to East Glacier, the closest permit office. There's also a camp store which will remain open, which is kind of down here by the lake. So hopefully that won't disturb things too much, but the best news is Many Glacier, which is north of here, that is fully open this year. So it was closed last year, and it's a very critical point for the CDT. It's actually where the two routes divide. So if you've looked at a map before, you know that there's two terminuses to the CDT. So that remains open this year. The campground is open, and so we'll just give you a lot more options on your permit itineraries. Next thing I want to talk about, and this isn't necessarily an update, and you may notice that we talk about this every year. And the reason is there's probably nothing that will happen that will impact your CDT hike more than a wildfire. It's something that's becoming more common. And we have actually seen out of the 20th largest wildfires in recorded history within a mile of the CDT, 14 of them have happened in the last 25 years. So it's very likely that at some point, if you're doing a section hike or a through hike, that you may run into a forest fire and a trail closure. I also want to point out that we know, and maybe it's something that we don't want to admit, but we know CDT hikers have caused wildfires in the past. So it's not like a car camper problem or a day hiker problem. It's kind of all of our problem. And so I really urge you and just want you all to consider not having a fire. I'm not saying don't have a fire, but really consider, is it worth having a wildfire or a campfire, excuse me? Is it worth having a campfire while you're on trail? Maybe it is, and you will make that determination. But looking at what the moisture we've gotten this year, I mean, things can change, but it looks like it may be a high severity year for wildfires. So really consider not having a wildfire or a campfire. And if you do, make sure that you are ready to fully put it out. And that means having water readily available to completely douse your campfire, stirring it, and then taking your hand and feeling the fire and seeing if there's any heat. And if there is, repeat that process. And then once you're done with that, dig underneath the ashes a couple inches and take your hand and feel if there's any heat again. I once upon a time was a wildland firefighter and I was on a fire in Colorado. And I want to share this story because it really opened my eyes to how easy it is to start a wildfire. But anyways, after we got the fire out, I worked with the fire investigator and we could see a makeshift campfire ring that someone had made. And we could actually see that they attempted to put it out. We could see the stick they used to stir it leaning against the tree. And then what happened was the heat from that fire caught a dead root from underneath the campfire. The fire investigator dug the whole thing out and estimated for 2 to 5 days that root smoldered underground. And then a few yards away, it finally got back to the surface, found some dry fuel, found oxygen, and ignited a fire. So I share that story because whoever started that fire probably thought they were doing a good thing. They put it out. They might have even heard about it on the news, and they probably had no idea they started that fire because it happened 2 to 4 days or so after they had left. So it's really easy to start fires. It really can impact your hike. Last year we had a fire at Green River Lakes Trailhead, which is arguably the most scenic area on the entire trail. And unfortunately, a lot of hikers had to miss that because of a wildfire. So just be mindful when you're out there this year. And I also just want to touch on if the trail does close. The CDTC does not close or open the trail. That decision is going to come from the appropriate land manager. So U.S. Forest Service, BLM, National Park Service. We will just share that information with you. So I spoke earlier about signing up for alerts. If you do sign up for alert via our registration page, this is an example of an alert that you would get, so you can know about it. Do you know that that process can take hours and it can even take days before the Forest Service understands, gets personnel into a location, especially if it's a remote location, and understands where the fire is, where it's moving, values at risk. So that can take some time. So if you're on the ground and you see a fire or you see smoke and you haven't gotten an alert yet, um, trust your instinct, turn around and get to safety. Don't wait for the CDTC to tell you that the trail is closed before you put yourself in a safer situation. Um, and then I also want to mention reroutes. We will work with the land agencies to advocate for reroutes for you all. Um, any reroute that we do publish is going to be a recommendation from the agency. So just know it's a recommendation, it's not a requirement. If you don't want to do the reroute, you do not have to. You can try to get a ride around the entire incident, which is sometimes the only option. They're not always going to be possible, like we saw a couple times last year, but we will try to get those published for you. And those also can take time. Usually the fire management teams want to get a really good, get the fire secure before they start publishing reroutes because the fire could shift and they don't want to put hikers in harm's way where that, fire potentially is going over that reroute. So yeah, if you want to see our current closures, luckily we, I think, only have a couple right now. They're not wildfire related, but those are always going to be on our closures page on our website. All right. This year, I just want to mention Trail Days really quickly. It's going to be April 24th to 26th in Silver City, New Mexico. I think the timing lines up really well with through hikers. If you're a northbound through hiker, you can maybe even start from the southern terminus and walk to Silver City for Trail Days, get that timing right, or go to Trail Days first and then start your hike. There's going to be speakers and speaker series. There is a buffet on Friday night at the Toad Creek Brewery. Lots of raffles to give away, live music. There's on Saturday going to be local vendors. The 2026 class photo will be around noon on Saturday. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I encourage you all to come if you can. We're also going to try to arrange a free shuttle from Lordsburg to Silver City on Friday and Saturday. So if you want to ride back and forth, we should be able to help you out there. And then there should be in-town camping as well. We haven't finalized that yet, but we'll get the word out on this Trail Days webpage here with this QR code once those are finalized. And finally, before we get to questions, I know Claire talked a lot about the NDA, and we're already seeing a lot of questions about this, and for good reason. It's very new. I don't know if this has ever happened before, so it's new for us. It's obviously new for you. It's new for the BLM, and it's new for the Army, who I don't know if they've ever managed the CDT before. I want to talk about the shuttle. There shouldn't be too much changes as far as how the shuttle operates. I get this question a lot. Do I need clearance to take the CDTC shuttle? The answer is no. Through instructions from the Army, we're going to start dropping off, like Claire said, at mile 2.2, where the CDT crosses Commodore Road. That is outside of the NDA. If you have clearance and you want to access the border via the CDT, you can do so there. That's why we picked that spot, because it's really easy to access the terminus from there. So again, if you have clearance, you can then go there. If you don't have clearance, or you just don't want to access, you don't want to be near the NDA or in the NDA, you can just head north from there and start your hike there. So it's really up to you. But just so you all are aware, if you do not have clearance, you can still take our shuttle, because we're not going to drop you off within the NDA. Water caches are going to be included if you take the shuttle. If you're not taking the shuttle, you can still sign up for water caches. It's $25. Please do so on our website and sign up for this. We allocate enough water for people who tell us they're going to be there. But if we have a group of people go through that have not signed up for water, you're taking water that's allocated for other people. So please do not take water unless you have signed up with us or you've cached your own water. You can absolutely cache your own water. If you do cache your own water in these cache boxes, make sure that you label your jugs with your name and your ETA, and then make sure that you pack those out once you've moved through there. Also included in the CDT shuttle is a one-year membership to CDTC, which comes with some nice gear discounts. If you complete the trail, we'll give you a free completion certificate. And then this year, as you can see in this picture, there's a free Holy Hiker backcountry bidet, which is generally donated by Holy Hiker. So every shuttle rider, if you want one, you can get a backcountry bidet. And what I would say about backcountry bidets is don't knock them till you try them. They can really change your experience. And then finally, here is a map of everything I kind of described. This is the border wall. If you were unaware, the border of the CDT, where the southern terminus is actually on the north-south border. And so on the right side of the screen, you can see there's Mexico, and on the left side of this line is the US. These gridded red areas are the NDA, which I know that maybe looks a little strange, and that's because the transfer lands did not happen in private parcels or in New Mexico state land. So this land over here where my cursor is actually New Mexico state land. One thing that is not on this map is there's a 60-foot section essentially that parallels the border that is within the NDA. So even over here now, this 60-foot section to the border fence essentially is actually in the NDA. So just keep that in mind. But this is where the shuttle will drop off. And like I said, if you then want to access the southern terminus, you can do so via the CDT, or you can just head north if you would like to. All right, and I'm going to pass it back over to Alex and we can start getting into some questions.
Great, thanks, Danny. And we've had a lot of good questions come into the Q&A. So we've answered a good number of these already, but a few questions came up repeatedly. So I thought, we might tackle a couple of those first for the group because some people are also probably wondering them. So one question is, and I don't know if you want to take this or someone else does, maybe Haley, if you want to, but of just about wildlife safety. Some people have asked about dangerous plants or, especially anything unexpected on the trail, just to be aware of going into things.
Yeah, I can start us off and then I live in one of the 5 states on the CDT, so if any of these other folks want to chime in, please feel free. But yeah, there are 2 questions about animals, plants, insects that you may encounter along the CDT. I know someone mentioned on the PCT there's poodle dog bush. We do not have that. I remember that being really nasty on the PCT. We have all the kind of general biting insects, mosquitoes, black flies. There's red ants in some sections. There are also rattlesnakes in every state along the divide. I mentioned you're probably unlikely to see any outside of New Mexico and Colorado, but just stay alert. Those are definitely all over the trail. There is also poison ivy along the Gila River. That's especially bad in the spring and fall months, of course, right when CDT hikers are coming through. So stay aware for that. I get it every spring when I'm down there, unfortunately. But otherwise, not too many surprise things. I'd say it's all like pretty normal stuff, like spiders. You probably won't see any tarantulas, unfortunately. And then yeah, general like of the large mammals that everyone knows about, bears, mountain lions, goats, etc. So just always stay aware, but nothing too crazy.
Awesome. Anybody have anything to add there? Awesome. Well, I can say Colorado is pretty much the same. So lots of fun stuff out there. All right, Danny, I think this one's probably for you. Could you just clarify, there were a couple questions about whether registering your hike is included when you sign up for the shuttle, and also if that automatically gets you signed up for like trail updates and alerts. How does what's all included there?
Yeah, it is separate. So if you sign up for the shuttle, please register separately. And within that registration form, there will be a question, do you want to receive trail alerts? And then do you want them via text and or email? So yeah, that can all be found on that registration page.
Great. Awesome. Just for those of you on from the staff. Are there any questions anyone wants to answer that they see in the Q&A? I just want to make sure I gave a moment for that in case anyone was chomping at the bit to answer any of these. Otherwise, I've got another one here.
Yeah, I'll pop in really quick because I see this question here, but I also hear it a lot. How can you cross the northern border from the US, from Glacier National Park into Canada? The answer is yes. And so you may have heard on the PCT that it was kind of like an unofficial entry to be able to walk in. Canada made an exception for that. They have since stopped that, so you cannot do that on the PCT. However, on the CDT, there is a port of entry, official port of entry there, so you can. You have to have the proper documentation. So if you're a U.S. citizen, make sure you have your passport or passport card or appropriate visas, depending on what other country you're coming from. And actually, when you cross into Canada, you are going to call Canadian Border Services. If you don't get reception right there at the border, they'll allow you to walk into Waterton and use their phones at the visitor center, and then you essentially report yourself over the phone. If you're going the other way, if you're coming from Waterton into the United States, you have to download the Roam app and then you report your entry that way. So you'd use the app again with the proper documentation, report your entry. Once get cleared, then start walking from Waterton into the US. So hopefully that clears up. You still can do that as of now. That has not changed since it reopened after COVID, but it could change potentially. So just keep an ear out, and we'll obviously get that word out if that does change.
Great. Thank you, Danny. And one more actually for you, yeah, probably for you, is on the water cache. Someone asked how much water, they sign up for the shuttle. So how much is cached for them and where? And someone else also asked, how do you recognize or identify a CDTC water cache? Because yeah, I know that there are some unofficial ones sort of sometimes out there. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I might have missed the first part of that, but I think I got it. But the water cache locations are in far out. They're on our map set. The GPS coordinates are also on our webpage under the Southern Terminus Shuttle page. They're roughly 13 to 20 miles apart. Anyone that signs up with the shuttle with us or just signs up for just water only, we will allocate 2 gallons of water per cache box per person. And then what was the other? Oh, how do you know whose is whose? We have big six-gallon jugs in there that say CDTC on them. So if you have signed up with us, you are welcome to use those. If you haven't and you want to cache your own, we always try to leave some space for everyone else to cache their own water in there as well.
Great, thank you, Danny. I will leave this one open for whoever wants to tackle it. There are two questions just on confirming, which permits are available. So I don't know if someone wants to just kind of reiterate what are sort of the must-have permits that a through hiker is going to need. It looks like someone here lists the New Mexico State Trust Lands, Recreational Access Permit, Glacier, and Yellowstone. And they said, is there anything else they would need?
Yeah, I'll happy to jump in here too. And sorry about the confusion with the New Mexico State Land Trust, and Dan would know better here, but we no longer need a permit for New Mexico State lands if you are on the CDT. Essentially, we have an agreement with an easement through those lands. So if you're on the CDT, you do not need one. If you're going to deviate from the CDT and explore other New Mexico State lands, then yes, you will need a New Mexico State lands recreation permit, and you can get that on their website. I think it's $35 for the year. Other permits that you need is the Blackfeet Reservation permit, and that's more like an access pass. Beginning April 1st, you can go to their website. It's also linked on our website, and you just buy that, and it's good for the year. It's $20, and you just need to have that. You don't need to indicate when you're going to be there. And then going south to north in Colorado, Indian Peaks Wilderness. If you're going to stay overnight in the Indian Peaks Wilderness, you need permits. You can get those on recreation.gov. However, I think it's like 6 miles of the CDT go through the wilderness. So most people just don't, as long as you don't camp in the wilderness, you don't need a permit just to go through there through the day. Same thing with Rocky Mountain National Park. A lot of CDT hikers opt to not stay overnight in the park, and then you do not need a permit. And there's a few ways you can get through the park doing that. You can take the cutoff trail through Tunahutu Creek, or you can do the entire loop, which is about 28 miles. But if you do want to stay in the park, you do need a permit. Again, recreation.gov, and you will also need a hard-sided bear canister to stay overnight in the park. Yellowstone. Yellowstone, you need a permit for overnight camping. They allow CDT hikers to call 2 days before, and they will issue you your permit over the phone and email it to you. And then you'll pay over the phone as well. And then I mentioned the Blackfeet Reservation, and then finally is Glacier National Park. Glacier National Park, again, you have to have overnight permits, and you can get those online. There's a lottery for advanced permits that I think goes live March 15th, and you do that through recreation.gov. Most CDT hikers, especially long distance CDT hikers, utilize the walk-up option. They hold 30% of all their permits for walk-ups, and you can get a permit day of or the next day as a walk-up. So that's how most people do it. And the easiest access to those permit offices from the CDT are going to be at Two Medicine, which is again open this year. That is on the trail. It's right next to the trail. Or the St. Mary's Visitor Center, which you would probably need to get a ride to, which is about an hour and a half drive from, is it an hour and a half? It's about an hour maybe from East Glacier. So hopefully that clears up permit questions. I think I got them all.
Yep. Yeah, I think you did, Danny. Good job. Very, very helpful. All right. A few different questions. I know you just spoke about this a little bit, but a few questions have come up here about bear canisters. Someone asking just about our sort of opinions or experiences of using like soft-sided canisters or hard-sided ones, and then also just what are the specific requirements on needing those if you're not going to be staying in the national park itself. Does anyone want to tackle that one?
I can. I would say, what maybe most people don't realize is there are several forest orders where you have to properly store your food, especially from Colorado and north. Uh, for most of them, you either have to do a bear hang, so a 10 by 4 bear hang, 10 feet off the ground, 4 feet away from the trunk of the tree, or have a interagency grizzly bear certified container. So the list of all of those is on that I interagency IGBC website. Um, the only exception to that is Rocky Mountain National Park, and maybe Jordan, if I'm wrong here, correct me in the chat, but where you do have to have a hard-sided, that is a requirement within the park, but only again if you're staying overnight do you need that. Which one to use? That's kind of personal preference. I like the hard-sided because I'm lazy and I don't want to spend 5 minutes every night finding a correct tree hang somewhere. So bear canisters for me are very easy. They're a little bit heavier. The most common one people I find carry on the CDT are the BV 450s, and they really only weigh about 1.5 pounds more than your rope and bag that you would need otherwise. So that is kind of a personal preference, but the most critical thing is make sure that you are storing your food properly. And there's a lot more things than bears that can also get into your food as well. So please, please, please do that. And you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting the animals and you're protecting the hikers behind you. So hopefully that answers that question.
Perfect. Perfect, Danny. Thank you. All right, next one here is a definitely like a pertinent question this year. With the really currently very low snow levels in the San Juans in Colorado and also New Mexico as well. Pretty much most of the trails well below average. Just are there any particular issues or concerns that we foresee? And this person asked specifically for northbound hikers, but I would expand the question to just overall, are there any issues we see? Jordan, do you feel comfortable answering this as our Colorado expert?
Yeah, sorry, I was throwing some stuff in the Q&A as well. But yeah, I'm Jordan Williams. I'm the Colorado regional rep for CDTC and Fort Collins, but travel a bit throughout the state. And so yeah, kind of the two sides of that is even in May, if you're hiking in the San Juans or any mountain ranges, wanting to be really aware of avalanche conditions. I linked the Colorado Avalanche Information website there. And thankfully, we're getting some snow right now, so avalanche conditions are super extreme and dangerous right now. But even in May, there can be some issues with avalanche dangers, and you really need to be aware of your own skill sets when it comes to crampons and ice axes and your ability to hike through snow drifts and whatnot. But on the flip side of that, going into June and July, even we're anticipating, like Danny said, a lot of additional wildfire danger. So just being really aware of those forest orders that we try to post on our website and advertise on the groups in terms of additional restrictions for fires and sometimes even open flames, but also jet boils and things like that too, even sometimes. So just being really aware of both those sides of the equations. Yeah, anybody else have thoughts on that? If not, I can answer another question while I'm talking that I saw on here.
Take it away.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, someone asked about Webster Pass and Grace Peak and Santa Fe Peak, there being a scramble there. And so we've really tried to take that shortcut kind of off most of the official maps. I think far out, our center line, as well as Colorado Trail Explorer, has been updated with the official Forest Service line, which is around the Morgan Gulch Trail. And we're actually going to be doing some work on that trail to make it more user-friendly this year with road access up from Morgan Gulch there and down into Brew Creek, but also just the trail itself up and around to Santa Fe Peak Road. So yeah, trying to make that more user friendly. So there will be trail contractors up there in June and July to do some of that work, and then we actually have a volunteer project, which is almost full, I think, for September to fine tune that trail to kind of hopefully reduce the need to want to do that scramble, which isn't part of the official Forest Service route there. So hopefully some good news and some better trail access for folks as well up there this year. Yeah. I'll throw in the link
Love
to the
it.
trail here on CodeTrex.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jordan. All right. This is a New Mexico question. Or rather, I guess a desert question. I guess there's parts of Colorado and Wyoming that apply, but somebody asked specifically about what type of storms we can expect in the desert that aren't typical thunderstorms or cold fronts. Dan, do you want to, take this as our new
Well,
New Mexico?
this week it appears windy season is upon us here in southern New Mexico. So that's one of our main seasons here. So yeah, extremely high winds could be expected, especially for northbound hikers starting, especially March, April, maybe even into May. And you may think that wind, but this is like legit wind, like 60, 70 mile per hour gusts and total brownouts. So it really can make hiking pretty challenging, but also if you're traveling along the I-10 or the Highway 9 corridor to get to the southern terminus or get to Lordsburg, sometimes those highways are closed because the wind gets so bad and zero visibility is caused by the blowing dust. So that's probably one of the biggest ones. We did have a hydrothermal explosion in Yellowstone last year, which is unusual along the CDT. But yep, that's about it.
Great, thank you, Dan. This is a question I'm not sure of the answer. Someone else here probably does. Does anybody or do the other states have something similar to like the Colorado recreational search and rescue card? And for those who don't know, in Colorado, you can purchase a card. I believe it's $3 for a year, or like $10 for 5 years. It's very, very affordable, but it goes to the state backcountry search and rescue fund to support the mostly volunteer teams in the state. Does anyone know if other states have similar programs?
I know New Mexico, it is free to the public for all search and rescues. You don't have to buy a card or anything like that. It's all volunteer based, just through volunteer search and rescue teams. So you're covered in New Mexico. So.
Oh, and yeah, good clarification too is the Colorado card. It's not required. It's just a, sort of a way to personally contribute to the fund. Yeah, but it's also totally, free in Colorado as well. I'm not sure about Montana, Wyoming, or Idaho though. I do know that pretty much every search and rescue team in the country does accept, donations and definitely appreciates them. So, if you're looking to give back, I think that's a great way to just find a team in the area that you're hiking in and, make a donation. They'll always appreciate that and put it to good use. All right. Let's see here. Any outstanding questions that anybody wants to tackle here?
Just chime in, Alex. There was some questions about private lands and water sources and such and alternates. So if you're on the CDT and you're going to a water source that is noted, most likely it is on public lands available to the public. There have been some that have been noted on some other resources that maybe are on private lands, but usually there have been comments added to those sources that they're located on private lands and shouldn't be used. Most of the time, private lands are also posted pretty clearly as private lands. And then if you are planning to, choose your own adventure and do alternates, either known ones or your own alternates, or deviate from the official trail or trails, just recommend that you do your homework and you bring your resources, whether it's a mapping app like Onyx Backcountry or Gaia or Caltopo that has that land ownership status on there, or you just acquire land status maps so that you know where you're going as far as private lands and such. But typically, it's if you're on the trail, they are public sources or they're marked as such.
Great, thank you, Dan. We answered this in the Q&A, but I think it's a good question. Broadly, somebody asked about comparing Far Out with. She was recommended to use Gaia GPS app, and I know, of course, we have a lot of different maps of our own on our website. So can anyone speak to some of the various mapping apps and perhaps the pros and cons, or just sort of what to consider?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for this question, Alex, and whoever raised it. I highly recommend using multiple map sources. So if you're going to use Far Out, that is not enough. Far Out is great for the waypoint comments, especially the water sources. But we've seen a lot of people get in a lot of issues because that's their only source of navigation. So I'll share an example from last year. I don't know what happened exactly, but Far Out had an update. And for some reason, for a couple of days, people lost the comments on Far Out. And that forced several people off trail because they were not confident enough without that information of what to do. So they had to get off trail because their app broke. So make sure that you not only have other sources such as like the CDT map set. We have a free map set on our website that's actually currently being updated and should be ready by probably the end of this month, but it's still very relevant now. And then using other sources like Gaia is a good one. Onyx is also incredibly good. And yeah, these sources are just critical to have. And so make sure that you have multiple sources in case something breaks, but also you just want a lot of more information at your hands. Onyx is great because they have a public lands and private lands ownership layer. And so you can see if you are in public land, if you need to like detour around something because of a fire, something like that, and you need to make your own route, you can see where there's public lands that you can do that on potentially. So yes, please utilize multiple navigation sources And I can't stress this enough. And I actually polled the people that I drove to the Southern Terminus last year. I polled around 50 people. Only 2 people carried paper maps. But I see this happen every single year. At least one person, their phone dies, and then they need to get rescued because they have no idea where they are. So I cannot stress enough how important it is to carry paper maps because that does not require a charge. So you can always use those, and a compass and knowing how to use them.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, Danny. Yeah, there's a lot of different apps out there. Choose one that you can use and will use, and then also be sure to practice with it before you get out on the trail. Most of them require that you, or actually, all of them require that you download maps onto your phone so that you can use them when you don't have cell service. That's a really common mistake. I've done it plenty of times of where I forget to download the maps beforehand, and then it's almost useless out there. So make sure you understand the app and can use it, navigate. And those are really great too, because if you choose to go somewhere where there's different town or a different trail off of the CDT, you have more information to make those decisions as you're out there on the trail. And carry a battery pack so you can charge your phone.
Great. Thank you, Dan. All right, we've just got about 4 to 5 more minutes left, so definitely get those questions in if you've still got them. And if we do run out of time, we'll make sure that we try to follow up with some folks if we can afterwards. But definitely some great questions so far. Several people have asked questions just about sort of trail signage and markings. We just had someone specifically ask about how clear our trail junctions signed. And someone else has asked about, some specific areas of how well signed they are. Does someone want to speak just about, sort of the signage along the way and any maybe areas where there may be more or less? Yeah, take it away, Dan.
Danny. Yeah, I mean, classic answer, it depends. I will say it is generally well marked. As a whole trail, there are definitely some sections where it's better marked than others. But there are, the CDT is blazed with the official CDT blaze marking. It looks similar. I'm sure you've seen it if you're on this call, the classic CDT blaze. So that denotes the CDT. In wilderness areas, it's similar blaze, but it is wooden. So most places it is pretty well marked, but I won't say that the entire thing is well marked for everyone, everyone's preferences. And it really depends from section to section. So.
Great, thank you.
Alex, I just want to add something real quick.
Yeah, go for it, Corey.
This is Corey. Excuse me, folks, for my camera. I'm at a very spotty spot where my internet service ain't too good. But I just wanted to go back just to add a little bit more about the maps as well. Dan and Danny actually shared something very informative about, some of that information. But I also just wanted to add, how just important, Onyx can play, when you're out there on the trail. It can track you, so if you're unfamiliar about an area, and, get on Onyx, and start tracking yourself, and it'll pick up, areas to where it may get just very slight internet service, and you'll be able to show you the map, and it'll show you your destination of where you're going and what direction you're walking. So just a little more heads up on, using Onyx. I use it quite a bit when I'm out doing reroutes, and sometimes you're just in an area where you just don't have cell service. But, when you look onto Onyx, it shows exactly where you're at and, how to get back to where you need to be. So just wanted to share a little bit more about that. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. Yeah, lots of great tools out there to take advantage of. All right, well, we have about 1 last minute. So I think we'll probably wrap it up here. If you do have any questions that you think of as you're thinking through all these details though in the next few days, months, weeks, definitely reach out to us. You can always contact us on our website. You can send us a contact message there. You can get a hold of us on our social channels. You can even give us a phone call the old-fashioned way. But we appreciate all of your time, and thank you to everyone in the comments, who's engaged with us and expressed appreciation. We definitely we appreciate that as well. But I guess we'll just leave you with the best wishes for your adventure, your hike, your trek this summer, whether it's 1 week or 1 month or 6 months. We're here to support you, and we wish you all the best. So definitely don't forget to check out the 2024 and 2025 videos. We'll be sending out the recording of this, within the next few days. And we'll make sure we include some links in there to those other resources as well, just to kind of round things out. So anything I forgot from the rest of my colleagues? Otherwise, we'll see you all on the trail. Thank you all for coming, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks.